It is raining outside tonight, and I just made a fresh cup of tea. I am sitting here looking at these viral videos of people getting laid off from Meta and Google. There is a strange mix of emotions in these clips. Some people are crying, some are angry, and some are smiling while saying they are finally free. It reminds me so much of how I felt just a few years ago when I started my own corporate journey. I used to think that landing a six-figure tech job was the finish line of life. I thought if I could just get that badge, that free cafeteria food, and that impressive title, I would be safe forever. I thought the system was a ladder you just keep climbing if you follow the rules. But watching these videos makes me realize how fragile that illusion really is. The truth is that a job is just a single point of failure in your personal financial system. When you have only one income stream, you are essentially running a business with only one client. If that client decides to optimize their budget, your entire world changes in a single afternoon. I remember when the first wave of tech layoffs hit a while ago, I saw people who had dedicated 5 or 10 years of their lives to a company get logged out of their laptops in the middle of the night. No goodbye email, no personal conversation, just an automated notification that their role was eliminated. It felt incredibly dystopian, almost cold and mechanical. But that is the moment I realized we need to stop looking at corporations as families. A corporation is an algorithm designed to maximize shareholder value when capital is expensive and interest rates are high. The algorithm changes its variables. It is not personal, it is just arithmetic. And if the company is using math to protect itself, we must use math to protect ourselves too. That realization was the turning point for me when I was 22. I decided I would never let another person's spreadsheet dictate my peace of mind. I started tracking every single dollar, not out of greed, but out of a desire for autonomy. I wanted to build a financial cushion so thick that a layoff would feel like a boring vacation rather than a life crisis. Let us actually sit down and look at the real math behind saving your first $100,000. When I tell people I saved that amount by age 26, they often assume I made a lucky bet on a cryptocurrency or a trendy stock. They want to hear a story about a massive win or a secret loophole, but the reality is so much more boring. And honestly, a bit tedious. I did not buy into any hype, and I did not strike it rich. Overnight, I just embraced the boring truth of a high savings rate and consistent market index funds. Let us break down the numbers because the math of wealth is actually very predictable. If you can manage to save just $20 a day, that comes out to about $600 a month. If you invest that $600 every month into a standard index fund, yielding an average of 8% annually, you will reach $100,000 in roughly 9 years. Now, if you are able to step that up and save $1,000 a month, that timeline drops to around 7 years. If you can push it to $2,000 a month, you are looking at less than 4 years. When I was starting out, I did everything I could to maximize that monthly gap between my income and my expenses. I kept living like a college student even when my salary started to grow. I stayed in a small apartment with roommates. I drove an old used car that smelled like old coins, and I cooked almost all my meals at home. My friends were going out to expensive dinners and leasing new entry-level luxury cars. I felt a lot of FOMO during those years. And I am not going to pretend I did not. I used to sit in my room wondering if I was wasting my 20s by being so strict with myself. I wondered if I was missing out on life while everyone else was enjoying their 20s. But every time I felt that temptation to spend, I would open my spreadsheet and look at the math. I knew that a dollar saved and invested in my early 20s was worth so much more than a dollar spent on temporary status. Because of the law of compounding returns, the money you invest early does the heaviest lifting. It is like rolling a small snowball down a massive hill. At first, it looks insignificant, and you feel like you are putting in a lot of effort for very little reward. For the first 2 or 3 years, your portfolio barely moves. You put in $10,000 and the market drops, and suddenly you have $9,500. You feel like an idiot, and you think the system is rigged against you. I remember looking at my account balance during a market downturn and feeling sick to my stomach. I thought to myself, I gave up all those weekend trips and nice dinners just to watch my money vanish into Wall Street. But that is exactly where most people give up and pull their money out. They treat investing like a casino game where they need to win immediately. They do not understand that the real magic of compound interest is heavily backloaded. The first $10,000 is a brutal, agonizing grind that feels like pure sacrifice. The first $50,000 is still a long uphill battle where your contributions represent almost all the growth, but somewhere around the $80,000 mark, something incredible starts to happen. The daily fluctuations of the market begin to move your portfolio by amounts that equal your weekly paycheck. You start to see the money generating its own money, independent of your physical labor, when you finally hit that $100,000 milestone. The engine is fully built at an 8% return. A $100,000 portfolio makes about $8,000 a year just by existing. That is nearly $700 a month of pure passive growth. That is equivalent to having a roommate who pays you rent every month but never uses the kitchen or takes up space. Once you reach that point, the momentum shifts completely. Going from $100,000 to $200,000 takes a fraction of the time and effort it took to get to the first milestone. The system begins to work for you, rather than you working entirely for the system. That is what I mean by the mathematical certainty of wealth. It does not require luck, it does not require an inheritance, and it does not require you to create a viral app. It just requires you to accept the fact that wealth creation is a game of patience and discipline. When you look at those tech workers in the videos, many of them were making $150,000 or $200,000 a year. They had incredible incomes that most people can only dream of. But because they fell into the trap of lifestyle inflation, many of them had very little savings to fall back on. They lived in expensive, high-rise apartments, bought designer clothes, and relied on corporate perks for their identity. When the perk disappeared, their lifestyle became unsustainable within weeks. They were high earners, but they were not wealthy. There is a massive difference between a high income and true wealth. Income is what you bring in today, but wealth is what you keep and control. Wealth is the measure of how long you can survive without selling your time to someone else. If you make $200,000 a year but spend $190,000 to maintain your image, you are just one paycheck away from poverty. You are trapped in a golden cage. And the key is held by your manager. I did not want a golden cage. I wanted the open field. I realized that true luxury is not about driving a fancy car or having a job title that sounds impressive at parties. True luxury is the ability to wake up on a Tuesday morning and decide exactly what you want to do with your day. True luxury is the option to walk away from a toxic boss or an unethical company without worrying about how you will pay rent next month. When you have capital, you have options, and when you have options, you have freedom. The current economic climate is changing rapidly, and the old playbooks are no longer working. We cannot just rely on the traditional path of working 40 years for a single employer and retiring with a pension. The job market is becoming more volatile. Automation is accelerating, and companies are hyper-focused on efficiency. In this new world, your primary financial goal should be to build your own personal safety net. You need to become your own central bank. You need to create a financial structure that can withstand any macroeconomic shock, and the foundational block of that structure is your first $100,000. If you are watching this and feeling overwhelmed by the current state of the world, I completely understand. The news is full of negativity. Inflation is making everything expensive, and it feels harder than ever to get ahead. It is easy to develop a mindset of defeatism and think that there is no point in trying to save. But I want to challenge you to look at things differently. The economic downturns and corporate restructuring are exactly why you need to start today. Control what you can control. You cannot control the Federal Reserve, you cannot control corporate layoffs, and you cannot control the global supply chain. But you can control your savings rate, your consumption habits, and how you allocate your attention. Instead of spending hours scrolling through social media, watching people show off their luxury lifestyles, spend that time learning about tax strategies, asset allocation, and low-cost index funds. Instead of buying things to impress people you do not even like, use that money to buy your future freedom. Every dollar you save today is a soldier working for your independence tomorrow. It takes time, and it requires you to be comfortable with being bored. The best investing strategy is incredibly boring. It involves buying the same diversified funds month after month, year after year, regardless of whether the market is up or down. It means ignoring the talking heads on television and the sensational headlines on the internet. It means sticking to the plan when everyone else is panicking or chasing the latest speculative bubble. I remember during the height of the market mania, people were making millions on random coins and meme stocks. I felt like a dinosaur with my boring index funds and high-yield savings accounts. I felt like I was left behind while the rest of the world discovered a shortcut to riches, but shortcuts usually lead to dead ends. When the bubble burst, most of those paper gains vanished into thin air. The people who thought they were financial geniuses realized they were just riding a wave of cheap liquidity. Meanwhile, the boring math of steady investing kept marching forward. Consistency always beats intensity in the long run. If you can build the habit of automatic saving, you take human emotion out of the equation. Set up your account so that a portion of your paycheck is automatically transferred to your investment account. The day you get paid, do not give yourself the opportunity to spend it. Treat your savings like a non-negotiable bill that you owe to your future self if you pay everyone else first. Your landlord, the grocery store, the streaming service, you will always find a way to spend what is left. But if you pay yourself first, you force your lifestyle to adapt to the remaining balance. It is a simple psychological trick, but it is incredibly powerful. We are living through a massive generational shift right now. The promises that were made to our parents' generation do not apply to us anymore. The system is being rewritten, and we have to adapt to the new rules. Security is no longer something that is given to you by an institution. It is something you must manufacture for yourself through discipline. When I look back at my journey to $100,000, I do not remember the things I bought. I remember the feeling of deep relief when I finally hit that number. I remember looking at my screen and realizing that I had built a wall between myself and financial chaos. That feeling of security is worth infinitely more than any consumer good you could ever buy. It allows you to breathe easier, to think more clearly, and to make decisions based on what you actually want rather than out of desperation. If you are in your early 20s and just starting out, please do not be discouraged by the small numbers at the beginning. Every massive oak tree started as a tiny seed that spent years underground doing nothing but growing roots. Your early savings are your roots. No one sees them, no one applauds them, and they do not look impressive on social media. But without those roots, you will fall over the moment the first economic storm hits. Build your roots deep, trust the math, and give yourself the gift of patience. The process is slow, but the outcome is inevitable. If you stay the course, let us stop chasing the illusions of overnight success and start building things that last. We have a long journey ahead of us, but the math is on our side. Thank you for sitting down with me tonight, and let us keep building.